Welcome back to another episode of DCEULOGY. That's tough to say.
It looks better spelt out.
Yeah, it looks better spelled out. The DCEU rewatch podcast. Where I don't know the formal intro. Do we have?
Yeah, no, you got it. It's a spinoff, baby.
It's a spinoff pod. We're your co-hosts. I'm Evan.
And my name is Alex. And on today's adventure through the DCEU, we're taking it back to the start. What better place to begin than with the very first entry, Man of Steel. What year did this come out?
This came out in 2013.
Whoa!
It's been 10 years since this movie came out. This is the year Haley and I started going out.
Ooh!
It is, I think, maybe like the first movie date we went on. We went to the theater together. She wasn't crazy about the movie, and she hasn't seen many superhero movies with me since, but this one holds a special place in my heart, I guess.
I tried to get Nikki to watch it with me just yesterday, and she did like 5 minutes. It was like, I need to go do this thing. No, that's why we got to get on the podcast and talk about it with each other, because we have no one to appreciate these amazing movies with. All right, 2013. I'll be honest. Let's just do a little flashback. I'm a busy man. I'm president of our fraternity. I beat Evan in our race. Sorry, that was not what I was expecting this to go. True. I'm president of our fraternity. I got a lot going on. We do a ton of stuff. I don't know I saw this in theaters, which is a mark on me. But I will say when I saw it on DVD, which back then probably like a year later, I was only so on it. When I rewatched it, I thought it was good, but I wasn't like, oh, phenomenal, amazing, like that was fantastic. Upon rewatching, so I've rewatched it twice since then. One was in lockdown for The Circle when I had nothing to do. I watched it then, and that was my turning point. I think I remember texting you, if you remember, when I was on WhatsApp. I was like, this movie is fucking phenomenal. Yeah, it holds up.
2013. Zack Snyder is on a bit of a hot streak. He had 300 in, I want to say, 08, 09.
Okay.
He had done Watchmen, the movie adaptation. Oh. Similarly divisive, movie.
You love it or hate it.
And then he also had a smaller one. I want to say it's called Sucker Punch. I've never seen it.
It is.
Vanessa Hudgens was in that movie.
Yeah, you got
it. But he was a hot director.
Seen it.
Yeah. Henry Cavill, essentially no-name actor. There was one like Greek mythology movie he did. I forget what it's called, but
okay, I have no idea. I thought this was like his first major role.
Yeah, but then the screenplay for this is by David S. Goyer, who co-wrote Dark Knight and Dark Knight Returns.
I didn't know. I remember back then I was like probably one of the people like, oh, how do you tell a good Superman story? But I feel like it's been 10 years. I've come like 180 on it. Like Superman is the superhero story. Like, you know what I mean? He is the epitome of what a superhero is. And when you kind of realize he's that like paragon of hope, if you will, it just puts like a whole new spin on everything he says and does.
When you say, how do you tell a good Superman story? This was rebooting because Bryan Singer of the X-Men movies tried to do a Superman story, which Superman Returns, which was a weird continuation of the Christopher Reeves movies. They cast Brandon Routh, who went on to act as the Atom in the CW. Superman had a kid in that. It was a strange entry. So DC was also, or Warner Brothers was also trying to figure that out.
Man, the CW at this time with Warner Brothers, they kept going back and forth. Like I was reading the Flash TV show started, and then a week later they announced Ezra Miller playing the Flash on screen. And the CW, imagine how pissed they have to be. Okay, so we're not here to get into all the issues, and that's probably what bogged down some of these movies at the time was the comparisons to Marvel, the behind the scenes drama with everything. These movies are not well liked Is that fair to say?
Yeah, pretty much. They're not super
I'm not trying to rag on it because I like it.
critically well received. This is maybe one of the higher entries.
For the-
started
okay.
off, and it started off at like a C plus, a B minus, maybe in like the cultural recollection. So this movie grossed $668 million worldwide. It was the 9th highest grossing film of 2013. I don't have the tomato meter pulled up.
Just hearing it was the 9th highest grossing movie of that year, one, brings me back to a different era of movies where you're getting more than 10 movies in a year like that. And two, that should tell you like everything. Like if this is the 9th highest, like superhero movies nowadays are, top 3 always.
Yeah. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 56%.
Oh, that's a travesty.
Yeah.
This movie's way better than 50. This movie is in the 80s, realistically.
I could see 75.
What?
Plus.
You love this movie more than I do. How is this happening?
I love this movie. I love Henry Cavill, but this movie does have its flaws.
Name one. We'll get into them, I guess. So,
Yeah.
Well, wait, I'm so surprised that I just ended up having a higher rating of this movie than you. I upon my 2 rewatches of this, I think I've enjoyed it more and more each time. And so, okay, yeah, there are a couple problems now that I'm thinking on it, but that is not like the fault of the movie. If it's a standalone movie, here's one. John Jones is supposed to be the general, and I was like, dude,
I don't think
you could be stepping in right now. You could be helping all of this.
Yeah. Do you think that was planned at that point, or they
Hell no, it was
retroactively made that
retroactive? No, there's no way because there's zero hint. I'm looking for it. I'm that nerd who's like, oh, is there any hint that he's the Martian Manhunter? Yeah. No, there is not.
There is not.
But it's okay because, like I said, it didn't. I wasn't looking for that in this movie. This movie, like I said, is so much the essence of just Superman. And so before we get into it, like Superman. Correct me if I'm wrong. Superman your favorite superhero?
I would say Batman probably is, but Superman is the superhero. He's the first superhero, created the genre in 1938. Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster. He's the template for everything that has come after. I think it's important to note about this movie. When it came out, it was essentially a standalone movie. This was following the Dark Knight movies. I think they contemplated having it be set in that universe, but decided it wouldn't be.
I think there was
the DCEU.
Christian Bale, possibly. Yeah, so it was a weird time for DC. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, but like the DCEU essentially was not a thing yet. And then Avengers came out in 2012, and I think that is where, after this movie came out, Warner Brothers wanted to catch up as quickly as possible, and that's where they have famously had misstep after misstep in that pursuit.
Okay, well, we'll save Batman vs. Superman for a different podcast, whether it's rushing or not. I think we may disagree. But for Man of Steel, yes, I think it's important you view this basically as a standalone. It was not planned to be a trilogy, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman to Justice League. Mm-hmm. Now, that is what it has become, and I think it's a beautiful entry point, though. You know what I mean? Looking back on it all, like you said, Superman's the first superhero. Like, there's literally no better entry to the whole universe of the DCEU, and that's why I'm glad James Gunn is doing the same, essentially. It's not the official first movie, but he's like, this is the starting point. They get it. Thematically, it fits.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the cast a little bit. Do we start with Henry? Do we start with...
I think it's rude not. Or we could go in order of appearance. Well, I wanted to ask you this, actually. What did you think about them starting on Krypton?
I love it because we've seen Krypton fleshed out more than we ever have before. Mm-hmm. I think this segment spun into like the Krypton show on Sci-Fi.
Ooh.
It created this whole world and backstory. I literally paused the past 2 times I've watched this movie. I've paused during the Krypton sequence just to see. It's the first 20 minutes of this movie is Russell Crowe as Jor-El, awesome casting, and General Zod, Michael Shannon, and their whole debate. Too. And I really love how like the world building in it. Krypton is there's so much more detail in it. There's flying winged beasts that
that
he goes Harak, and then he like soothes this.
he literally jumps off.
It's a
And
wild
he catches
sequence, and it's 20 minutes long. It's before we get into the meat of the story. We have a 20-minute primer on Krypton, which is incredibly bold. What did you think of it?
So I think it was extremely powerful having the very first scene literally be his birth, because I'm not trying to sound sacrilegious here, but in some regards, Superman is like Jesus. And so, like, it was like a very, like, I don't know why, especially on this last rewatch, I was like, this is where it all starts, right here. You know what I mean? I was like, it's this moment. I will say the 20 minutes of it got me thinking. I enjoyed it, but I bet a lot of, like, my aunt loves Superman. I guarantee when she sat down to watch this, she was pissed the first 20 minutes were like, she's like, where's Clark? You know what I mean? Like, so she's like a big Smallville fan. So I guarantee, like, the Kansas stuff she loved, but, you know, it's 30 minutes into the movie. So I'm wondering if, like, start with the birth scene and then maybe intersect some flashbacks, kind of like how the movie did. But I agree. I actually loved the start of the downfall of Krypton because, like, that is it's the first domino in the whole series of events, because without it, you know, there's the meta human thing on Earth. It doesn't jumpstart any of what we're about to see and enjoy as an audience. So I actually really liked Zack Snyder's sort of like reverence for the moment.
And I think this is a thing that will carry through his entries in the DCEU. I think he's good at the religious or political allegory of the Superman mythos.
Yeah.
I think where these movies struggle is adding the human element of it. It loses touch, and I think that's why some of these movies are divisive.
Interesting, because I feel like that's like what Superman. I feel like that's like the essence of Superman, and so I do pick up moments of it here. Like, it is all about his humanity, growing up human. That's what makes him different. That's what makes him actually like. That's the hero part of him, if you think about it. You know what I mean? It's not the superpowers, it's his humanity. Because he could literally destroy anyone that disagreed with him for any moment. It's the bully pushing him down on the ground and him grabbing the fence. And he's like, I wanted to hit him so bad. And his dad was like, I wanted you to hit him too for a moment. Like, that's just so human, so real. But they're both like, the whole conversation, they don't say it, but they're like, you know you can't, though, right? Like, you can't. And his dad goes, oh, it's so cute. His dad, Jonathan Kent, what a saint. He goes, well, both dads. Oh, that's, okay. I love the two dad thing, too. So, but his dad goes, are you okay? He goes, you know I am. He goes, no, like, are you okay? Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent. How do you feel about him?
He was great. I don't think there's one person that was miscasted. Maybe the Law and Order Special Victim Unit guy. Just kidding. He was fine too.
Chris Maloney?
Yeah, I was kidding. No, just a random jab. He was fine. No, I don't think there was a single person that I was like, they're not doing it for me. Like, everyone really filled their role. Maybe because I've seen so much of Martha, she was kind of unimpressive to me in this movie. But you know, unfortunately, this movie really was not about her.
I think Kevin Costner does okay. I don't love the paranoia of Jonathan Kent. I get why.
Huh? Why?
Yeah,
You're harboring an alien and you wouldn't be paranoid that the government's going to come knocking on your door?
I think it's excessive to the point where Jonathan Kent doesn't feel like a relatable father figure in this movie. Him telling Clark not to save those kids, or like pushing back, or himself.
The worst was him self-sacrificing.
That's where Jonathan Kent rubs me the wrong way. It's like in our real modern day world, he would for sure be like a QAnon guy. Like, he's so his levels of paranoia. That is absolutely true, dude.
Are you saying the Kents are Republican? I'm screaming. Yeah. Middle of Kansas.
Think about it.
They're in that Bible Belt. shit. Okay.
You know it, dude. You know it's true. But yeah, Kevin Costner does okay at it. But I think the way Jonathan Kent is portrayed in this movie or written in this movie, it's just so hard to root for him as a father figure. I don't know. It's one of the things that
Whoa, wait. But I don't necessarily. This is from the view of Clark growing up. I don't think you're rooting for him. He's like the father who's like, you can't go to the party. He's like, Clark, you can't use your powers. Like, that's what dads do. He's just got a different set of problems with an alien son.
Okay. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I just think it's one of the things that keeps this movie from really excelling and being a knockout of the park like it should
What
be.
does James Gunn need to change about Jonathan? More, you're just saying more humanity? More love?
Yeah, I guess, in a way. And I don't know. I think just tonally, the shift is needs to be a little more optimistic than Jonathan Kent's paranoia.
Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Take it. I don't know. I agree. I really like Jonathan. Okay, but that's fine. Let's we left Krypton very fast, kind of like Clark in the jet. What is it set up for? What's Zod and Jor-El are kind of what's going on here?
Yeah. So I love that they flesh out the conflict on Krypton. We know the bit about Krypton is a dying planet. Jor-El's warned them. They didn't listen. And General Zod is trying to stage a coup to take over. But the part that I enjoy that they added to the mythology is this, like, Clark's natural birth. He's the first natural birth on Krypton in centuries. And they're normally birthed in the birthing chambers. It's like Matrix pods, essentially, where they're all created for a certain purpose, a certain job. And so Clark or Kal-El being the first natural born kid is sort of this, like, Jesus moment, like immaculate conception.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. Zack Snyder, he's doing a really good job. One thing, sorry to detract from the point, but you just mentioned it. One thing Zack Snyder does really well is these are like such sci-fi stories where I feel like Marvel sometimes loses that. But man, him, and there's even like so much of it in Batman vs. Superman, but the comparisons to Jesus and Superman are so good because like that, it's the natural thing that would happen if we found out there was one person on Earth who had these abilities. And so he doesn't shy away from it. Like, I feel like some directors would be scared to piss off the Christians. I love that addition. Everything you said about Krypton that Zack Snyder like added, I really love.
Jor-El steals the Kryptonian Codex, whatever. It's essentially the MacGuffin that Zod is chasing this whole movie. Yeah. And it's like the genetic code or something along those lines of the Kryptonian race. And he stows it away with Clark to be shot off to wherever, to Earth. And Zod, staging the coup, wants to preserve it, wants to protect it, wants to keep the Codex for himself so he can take it and, keep the Kryptonian race going somewhere else. So that's where their conflict lies. So how do you feel about Russell Crowe as Jor-El?
Russell Crowe is a real one because you could be like, I die in the first 20 minutes, but like he saw the part for what it was. You know what I mean? And so it's just, it could have been a random no name, but they were like, nah, we're getting someone who can act their ass off. And that he did. But I feel like it is a pretty different role for him. Like, I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know. I've seen a ton of Russell Crowe movies. Maybe I'm actually, I don't know.
Thor, Love and Thunder? No, I'm just kidding. A Beautiful Mind. Nice Guys?
Nice Guys. Yeah, so it is a bit of a different role for him, but I think he killed it. I think he really, in the beginning, he sells the panic. He's too paranoid as a father, as Evan would say. But he's like, I got to get my son off planet at all costs. And so
So I guess there is sort of the juxtaposition of Jor-El's optimism in humankind and then Jonathan Kent's pessimism. Maybe I'm thinking too much of Jonathan Kent from Smallville, and that's a relationship we get to see over like 6
10
to 10
seasons or
seasons,
something.
a billion seasons. But yeah, I really liked Russell Crowe. The Krypton segment was a movie, like a little episode of TV in and of itself, which
Yeah.
was great.
I do really like the risk of literally being, well, it is part of the story, but like him just being like, no, this first chunk of the movie is all gonna, like, that is something I feel like not a ton of directors would really do, but Zack Snyder, he's different, man, and I appreciate it. He's not afraid to throw a funky pace in a movie, as we'll see with Batman vs Superman. But like pacing wise, that's like really bold. No,
Yeah.
we never
No,
go back
I
to
would agree.
Krypton. I feel like
Yeah.
it should have been flashbacks, like, or Clark at one point in the middle getting flashbacks of everything that happened. But nah, he was like, no, this is the start of the story.
So once we leave Krypton, we first jump to Henry Cavill as Clark Kent.
We get the
On a
amazing
boat?
sequence. Yeah. Well, he's like a vagabond
Yeah.
traveler trying to stay hidden, and he's on a boat. But this sequence, I was adrenaline pumping. Like, literally, he hears a guy on the radio of the ship. They're like, what about the guys on the tanker? And they're like, leave them. They're dead. He was like, no, I can't let this happen. And he goes and saves them. And when he like busts open the door and he himself is just on fire and all those men see him, that's literally like a coming to Jesus moment, right? Like they were probably like, oh God, please save me, God, go, help me, God. And then Henry Cavill busts through the door. You're telling me you don't think that's God? Like it's good. It's a great scene.
Yeah. And so there's the oil rig scene, and then he falls into the water. This is one of those things where I think they did some retrofitting of the greater DCEU narrative around the time of Justice League coming out the first time around. There were all these like Screen Rant headlines of like, Jason Momoa confirms a fan theory that it was Aquaman who saved Clark Kent after he falls off the oil rig, the exploding oil rig. I was like, yeah,
You're shitting.
fucking right. No, that was the fan theory.
Some nerd said that, and Zach was like, that's good. Tell him it's true.
That's exactly what happened.
Zach was like, that's awesome. Those motherfuckers. This is one thing also, is since the Snyderverse is so divisive, fans who like are strong fans of it can be annoying.
Super annoying. Yeah. But Henry Cavill is great in the role. He's the most Superman-looking Superman we have ever had.
Looks, talk, the chin. Do you see this man's chin? I don't think I've ever seen a bigger chin on a man. There was a point where we see his profile and I go, that's got to be CGI. That chin is too fucking big. It's like the Crimson Chin, dude. His chin is gorgeous. It's the first time in my life I've ever noticed something like that. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
look at that chin.
Also, apart from, different from the NCU, Clark Kent the Vagabond has a bunch of chest hair.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's great. Yeah, wait.
Real man's
Does he
man.
lose that chest hair when he becomes Superman?
I don't know.
Well, here's the problem. Ready for this? I'm a big nerd. Would Superman actually be able to shave? Like, would the blade...
In the comics, I think he uses his laser vision to clean up his chest hair.
Damn it, I need that scene now. Damn it! Can you imagine him laser hair removing his chest? Imagine. All right, here's the scene. Batman comes into the Fortress of Solitude, and Superman is laying on a table, but his head is up, and he's using his laser vision to just do his hair, and he's got like the S carved in. You know how like you'll shave, you'll do some weird style before you fully shave? He's got like the S carved into his chest hair, and he's like, and Batman's like, I didn't see anything. Batman's like, I do it too.
This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Yeah. But he's built like a fucking Greek god, and maybe this is because he's the first. No, well, we had Brandon Routh, who was in a shitty movie, a shitty Superman movie. But like, this is why Henry Cavill is my Superman, and maybe everyone says that about the actor that they have in their swath of movies when they come through. And what I love about his portrayal is just the stoicness with which he portrays Superman, and it's maybe a little more in Batman vs Superman that we see that. But yeah, Henry Cavill, phenomenal job. Gonna miss him in the role.
I was gonna say, I've accepted now. It's been long enough that I understand and accept we're getting a new Superman, but it is such a big loss. And the reason it's such a big loss is because they fucking teased us in Black Adam. If they hadn't we got over it once that we were never going to see him again. They teased it, and then like 2 months later, they were like, "Guys, he's not coming back." Like, why the fuck would you do that to us?
They made him leave his Witcher role on Netflix, which blew him up in recent years. Like that, more people know him for that role probably than Superman, or equally as many, I would say.
It's a shame because he's great at Geralt too. Like, I don't understand why he can't do both. That's okay. So, this is about the time. What are your issues with the movie? Why don't you put this in the B+ A- range?
Okay, first and foremost, a lot of the dialogue is just absolute garbage. Like
do you have an example?
Terrible trash. I've got two.
Okay, please.
The first and most pressing one, I remember thinking this when I first saw this in theaters. It's after the big battle. Clark Kent is floating Lois Lane down, and they kiss, and she says, "You know, they say it's all downhill after the first kiss." And he goes, "I think that only applies if you're human." Right. I was like, are you serious? Someone got paid money to write that line?
That line's so bad, I don't even remember it from watching 30 minutes ago.
No, it's fucking awful. And then I was watching it this time. Another great actor in this movie, Laurence Fishburne, Morpheus. He plays Perry White, the editor of the Daily Planet, and when he's talking to Lois Lane about her reporting on like the story he didn't want her to run about Clark, this mysterious alien figure, he goes, "Can you imagine what the people on this planet would think if they knew a person like this existed?" No one talks like that, especially if you're a reporter. No one refers to human beings as the people of this planet.
Maybe you do when aliens start getting brought into the equation.
No, especially if you're not a fucking newspaper editor who's managing apparently a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter. Just a lot of the Lois Lane, a lot of the Daily Planet stuff just does not work for me. I don't know. Amy Adams as the intrepid reporter, it was rough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I can totally concede the fact that the Daily Planet stuff is the weakest parts of the movie. For me, it's like the Krypton, it's like Superman's abilities. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but the first one where it's not like all practical effects, I guess, if that makes sense, with Superman. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of like really strong CGI. Like, I feel like Smallville had like CGI, but it was like shitty. Like, I can picture the Flash running on like a blurred background from that show. Like, I'm like, yeah. Worse than Ezra Miller's run. So, and he's like, "I'll stay if you can catch me." And so, you want to talk about bad writing? Take the Smallville up for further. So, okay, there's probably some lines that are weaker, but I think like as a sci-fi superhero like throwdown, the Kryptonian fights are some of the best superhero sequences like I've seen.
I agree. And this is what I was saying earlier, is this movie shines in a lot of places, especially with the flight sequences. Gorgeous. At that time, I think that was incredibly new. I don't think we had seen anything like that.
Yeah.
And so that was really refreshing, but and the action scenes between the Kryptonians where they're just wailing on each other are awesome.
And they're breaking literally everything in their path.
But it's in these quieter moments where the movie suffers, right? It's like Zack Snyder can connect these bigger thematic elements and themes throughout the movie, but it's like those quieter moments that make you connect with a character that he's lacking in, and which puts this in like the C category for me.
That's the strength of Superman. His humanity, like I said, is what makes him the superhero. Yeah. It's what, because he could be a wild tyrant, but he's just a simple farmer from Kansas trying to do the right thing. I do love the sequence where they take him into custody after Zod makes his cryptic announcement on Earth. She's like, "You let him cuff you. Why?" He's like, "If it makes him feel safer." And then when he like gets annoyed with him, he just like casual. It's like it's the first time I feel like I've like it's just so casual in the way they show us Superman's strengths, and like him as a child just grabbing the fence post. You look at it after and you're like, oh, whoa, like that's, you know what I mean? That's quite the grip. And so I really love the show don't tell of his powers in that sense. I think this nailed, like I said, the theme, most of the themes of Superman. Maybe we're missing some of the humanity, but I think some of that comes in the later ones too. But you know, we'll cover those when we get into this. This is a standalone. I got a question for you, because you know I'm a nerd. What's the physics of Superman's flight? Like, I've actually always pictured it until, like, I guess, you know, this movie, that he is like so strong that if he just jumped, you know what I mean? Like, he's off as far as he needs to go, essentially. But in this movie, he can, like, and you know, I guess I've seen it in other ones where he can float, like, just casually. What's going on there?
Okay. So originally in the comics, his power was he could leap tall buildings in a single bound.
I've
in
heard
the
that.
Original Max Fleischer cartoons, he just jumps. He doesn't actually fly. But that changed pretty early on, maybe within even that cartoon series. But as far as the physics, I don't know. Maybe he's shooting little puffs of air at his feet. Like, I don't know what I think it's maybe like he's just unbound by Earth's gravity. As opposed
I
to,
kind of like it if
which
that makes
physics
sense.
still doesn't make sense, because then he would just keep floating up.
No. He's tethering himself to the Earth. Like, he's got that much control. But
Yeah.
I think that's actually probably the best way to put it, is he's never being affected by Earth's gravity. Because I was like looking, I was like, where's the propulsion? But you're right. If he's just not bound by Earth's gravity at all. Oh, man. And I just love, like, the scene of him in school where his senses and powers are, like, overloading him. And then later, when Michael Shannon's weird Earth suit, astronaut thing comes ripped off, and he's experiencing the same thing, and it's like overwhelming for him. I really liked that. I don't know if that's always with Superman, but I really like that he, you know, literally him being on Earth this whole time is what has attuned him. Otherwise, he'd be like,
Yeah, and I think to the filmmakers' credit is like they get a lot of those nuances of Superman down, and again, it's just like some of those smaller moments where it suffers. One of my problems, it's not even a specific, it's literally a plot loophole. After they come back down from the Kryptonian ship, when they're up there and ejects the escape pod, crash lands in a cornfield, and Clark helps her, she gets picked up on the side of the road by a cop, and then later on, he's at the Kent farm. Lois gets dropped off there by the police officer, runs up to Superman and says, "Clark!" Like, she didn't just reveal this man's identity to that police officer in Kansas.
it's bad. It's pretty bad. She's new to
a
all
pretty
this,
glaring
though.
omission. Like,
She's new. And that
like
cop
scene
was so...
construction. Like, you're telling me that cop doesn't know that he drove to the Kent residence?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I'll give you that one. I was ready to fight whatever you said, but I don't think I could argue that one. No, I don't have anything. That's a good point. So I don't know where to take it from here. Do you like Amy Adams as Lois?
No, and it's a shame, because I really like Amy Adams as an actress.
I thought they have so much chemistry, the way they look at each other and want to have babies with each other.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. Maybe it's because I love her. I thought she did great, though. I don't know. I thought she was.
It comes down to how she was written.
Okay, I thought she was a
Like, in the
different
beginning,
take on Lois, which not the same, but I thought it was. I thought it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, I think they just, again, and it's probably because they didn't write any of the Daily Planet stuff well.
Yeah, the Daily Planet stuff was the weakest
like
stuff here.
Her first scene getting to the Arctic base, she's like, "Are we done measuring dicks here?" And then like 2 minutes later, she's like, "What if I have to tinkle?"
Okay, that was bad. I'll give you that. I think part of the problem is when Superman was written, he worked at a newspaper. But like they joke nowadays, Laurence Fishburne's like, no one reads newspapers anymore. Like, it totally changes the landscape and the profession of what they're actually doing. Back in the day, this is not a slight at anyone that works at a newspaper, but like back in the day, a newspaper was kind of like a respectable job. But nowadays, I feel like it's more like a salacious, like get the headline. You know what I mean? Like there's no way in 2013 your editor is not saying, yes, print the alien story you have like definitive proof on.
10 things Superman loves.
Would you like it more or less if they were more like that?
If they were a BuzzFeed, more. Because it would be more fitting.
You know, they try to do that with Lex in the next one. They're like, he's like a Silicon Valley, like tech billionaire guy. It works in some aspects, but not others. So, yeah.
This movie works as like a sci-fi first encounter type movie.
Yeah.
As like a Superman, or as a comic book movie, or anything else, it falters, in my opinion. And I think that's why it's really divisive.
That's fair.
We don't have to go beat for beat with the plot, but
no, I mean
talk about the climax,
please.
The final battle with Zod.
The battle essentially the whole time is Kal-El has the DNA code in him now, so he's the MacGuffin himself. So they need to get him off world. Michael Shannon's basically like, we're gonna kill everyone on this planet. We're gonna terraform it. We're gonna make a new Krypton. And Clark says, no. He says Krypton had its chance, which I feel back in 2013, I was like, I didn't like that line, but I do like it now because Clark's not a Kryptonian at the end of the day. As much as he's like, I want to find my birth parents. I want to know where I come from. I think that's part of the movie is him realizing I'm not a Kryptonian. I am an Earthling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I really liked him literally screaming. He's like, Krypton had its chance. Loved it. So they're just destroying Metropolis. We need to do some investigating because I think in Batman vs. Superman, Metropolis is totally fixed. We need to see the time gap there because I was like, this place is decimated.
What was the government spend there?
What? Actually, no. Now that I'm thinking about it, there is a whole area cleared, and there's also a giant ship.
I think this is one of the reasons why this movie was divisive, was just like the wanton destruction of Metropolis. I loved it. I agree. I loved it. But it led, like that criticism, that backlash led to lines in Batman vs. Superman where you get guys in the government satellite tracker saying, they're on Rikers Island. Oh, it's empty. like dumb line. They're in the office district. Oh, it's after 5 p.m. Nobody's there. Like A to B. Like that's why those lines are in those movies.
I can. I'll give you that one too. That's pretty. I can see the through line as you're saying. I don't know. I really liked it because not to be pessimistic, but is this not what an alien encounter would be like? Oh, man. And I just love Zod being like, he's been amongst you for quite some time. I don't know why he hasn't come forward. Like, Zod can't comprehend, like, him just living a life there. And, that's part, me making a joke. That's part of what's so great, though, is literally their different ideologies. Like, they're clashing. Like, Zod can't comprehend why Kal-El would not want to turn this into Krypton. You know what I mean?
Because, he's genetically made for that purpose, to preserve and protect the Kryptonian race.
Kal-El was
a man
not
on a mission.
Genetically designed, though. He was a natural birth, and it goes back into that hope of your destiny is not pre-planned in your DNA, Clark. You were born of natural means. You can be whatever you want to be. I'm moving my grading up. I was like, this is no longer in the 80s. We're going to the 90s.
Yeah. Like, Michael Shannon in this role is fucking phenomenal.
Let's talk about it because
he might be the strongest performance in this movie.
You beat me to it. I was going to say this man made the stakes everything they were. You know what I mean? Like, he was so convincing. And just to get into, so the Flash trailer came out. We're going to see Michael Shannon as General Zod again. I'm so happy this Snyderverse started with a General Zod invasion and is going to close with a General Zod invasion. It is like actually such a poetic bookend that I never would have thought of. You know what I mean?
And he did it all with probably the most atrocious haircut and facial hair of all time.
He was like, what does a Kryptonian haircut look like? He was like, fuck me up.
Bowl
It's
cut
so
bang.
bad. Like, why not buzz? You're so close to buzzing it, dude. Just buzz. It looks like he's supposed to be like Julius Caesar. Like, I don't even know.
Maybe that's it. It's like the Julius Caesar, Mark Zuckerberg thing going on up top.
Oh man, his haircut is awful, but he's so compelling in this like role. He's scary, he's threatening, and oh man, when he like finally at the end like loses his armor and he's like, I'm gonna take you on your own terms now. He's like, I'm used to this. He's like, I trained from birth to be a fighter. He's like, you grew up on a farm. I was like, holy shit, dude. And when he drops his whole thing and he's literally in like a kind of black Superman suit-ish without a cape, and they're punching the shit out of each other in the air, all I could think was, man, how jealous is Dwayne The Rock right now if he's watching this? Like, he's like, that was supposed to be me.
That final monologue he gives just before shedding the armor, where he's like, my sole purpose was this, and you took that away from me. Yeah, again, strongest performance in the movie definitely goes to Michael Shannon.
Just to get to the climax here, since we are sort of wrapping up, but like when they're in the museum and Zod was like, if you love these people so much, you'll mourn them. And Zod's like, I'm just going to kill strangers. And Clark's like, stop, don't do it. And this is the first time Superman takes a life and he twists Zod's neck. And it's such a powerful scene because his eyes are still glowing and as they slowly unglow as the life of and I love, once again, it's not this show, or it's a show, not a tell of Superman's like, I'm not going to kill people rule. You know what I mean? Just like how hard that was.
It comes from somewhere. Yeah.
It's one of the strongest moments, I think, in Zack Snyder's trilogy is him snapping Zod's neck.
I love that moment. Unfortunately, it's a reason why this movie was divisive. I get what he was going for. It's like Superman. Everyone's like, Superman doesn't kill us, and Zack Snyder's saying that
this is
comes
why.
from somewhere.
Yeah.
This is why. It just left a bad taste in maybe a casual viewer's mouth.
Oh, but that was. I think it was supposed to catch you off guard a little. Because, I mean, Zod literally says, this only ends if you or I die. Like, he says that at one point in the fight. And I was like, oh, fuck. He's right.
Looking back at it now, I love that scene, but it's also, in that moment, you also see Henry Cavill kill the DCEU. Like, in that moment,
what do you mean?
Everything that came after, because it was so divisive.
Oh, you think
moment,
that was...
Their back was against the ropes for the next decade of movies.
That was the domino that started the struggle, if we're talking about...
That was the domino. Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. You think that was... I'm trying to trace it here. So, I mean, think about it, though. Does he forget... He jumps into his next movie and he's like, okay, Batman kills people now. Like, another person who famously is like, no killing, no guns. He's like, nah, Batman does this now. He didn't learn his lesson. Because I'll be honest, this one I didn't have any issue with, but I did have a problem with Batman randomly shooting people, like exploding cars. And I was like, oh, there's a dude in there.
Zack Snyder was perhaps a little bit of a kid in a candy store. Achieved great things with these characters, but sometimes maybe got a little lost in the action figure, like, oh, and then he does this, and then he does that, and it's really cool.
And then he's gonna die. Yeah. No, I think part of that is that DC at the time didn't have their James Gunn or their Kevin Feige. Like, Zack was both director.
Zack was supposed to be that.
Yeah, but I feel like they never like bestowed that title upon him. They were just like, you're going to direct these movies. And so, yes, the responsibility fell to him, but like there was probably not as much oversight as there should have been. Because I feel like famously then later these movies, he shoots them and then they get to the editing booth and WB and they're like, you need to change almost everything about this movie. You know what I mean?
Someone wasn't watching the TV.
Yeah, he was like an unattended kid in the candy store. And they're like, whoa, you bought $45 of Twizzlers? What do you mean?
Yeah. And again, that goes back to, like, they weren't intended, this was, a standalone movie for all intents and purposes at the time, and then retroactively they treated it as the starting point of the DCEU. Informally gave that role of overseer to Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
And they didn't particularly love
They didn't love what he was
came to the
giving them.
table with. Okay,
What a
but
horrible situation to be.
as much as I'm knocking this movie now, I love this movie. I loved this movie when it came out.
Yes.
I remember for a fact tweeting this very bold statement when this movie came out.
Oh.
Because this was after Dark Knight Returns. And
Oh.
even as divisive as it was, I said, I love what Zack Snyder is doing. If they play their cards right, this could be Pixar versus DreamWorks. As far as DC versus Marvel movies, if they play their cards right. They did not.
They had a great
I
hand.
thought the direction was DC was going to give a lot of creative control to the directors, and like you would see these really artful takes and really unique takes that are not as concerned with continuity and how they tie in.
And then,
obviously,
would you say they followed it up well with Wonder Woman? I think like Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad. I know Suicide Squad is divisive. Man, are all these movies?
Wonder Woman
might be the
perhaps-
most praised.
Wonder Woman is the most well-received movie by far. Yeah, wasn't it up for some Oscars?
I don't know. Don't quiz me there.
I don't know.
Okay, I wanna wrap this up here with some closing thoughts, but I do have a question for you. Now, I think part of what makes Superman great is when he does meet up with Batman, is sort of like the duality of the hero mindset, landscape, whatever you want to call it. My question for you, of the two dudes, I'm picturing, are you like the Batman of two dudes and I'm like the Superman? Would you say that's accurate? I'll give you my
don't
reason.
know.
What are you thinking? Your face says no.
I don't see either of us as either of those.
How
Or if
dare you?
anything, we both lean more Superman.
Okay, let me give you my. So both inspire each other. They help each other out. But I picture you as like the man with the gadgets and the tech. I'm picturing like editing everything behind, and I'm like the cheerleader waving the red flag. Like, we can do this. We got this.
Yeah, okay, I could see that. Yeah,
Like nothing's
in
gonna.
that way, yes.
Together, nothing can stop us. You know what I mean? That's what I was going for.
I agree.
Okay.
I like that.
You hater.
I didn't know where you were.
You're like, we're actually both Green Lantern. If you
Yeah.
think about, I'm going for a
I was like,
metaphor
are you,
here.
especially Batflick, like the murderous Batman. Like I was like, I don't know, I'm not seeing any.
Just meant like in
similarities.
general, their
Yeah.
relationship as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not like Marvel has done like that. I think that's what great is the Superman Batman dynamic is decades old, but like the comparison would be like Iron Man and Captain America.
Maybe that's a perfect example. Is like Civil War, one of my favorite superhero movies of all time.
Same.
You get these cool comic book moments like the fight between Iron Man, Bucky, and Cap at the very end, and they have the benefit of a lot of movies in between. But like the relationships are there, like the stakes are there, and that's just something that Zack Snyder could not achieve with the dialogue and the writing. Was
Trying to bank on the legacy of these characters. You know what I mean? And I think I allow it some leniency because, like I said, these two have been beefing for decades now. This is not like a new concept. They beef and then they're best friends.
So you're saying your impression of Man of Steel, you're in the 90s now.
No, I'll stay to the
Final-
80s.
okay.
I'm going to stick
Yeah.
to the 80s. I was being a little exaggeratory. I think upon rewatch, I think I could say this is my favorite DCEU movie.
Wow.
The only contender would be Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I think being 4 hours is a bit of a knock. If I'm gonna knock it on Avatar, I think I got to be a little consistent.
It's definitely up there for me. This is one of my favorite ones. I love Henry Cavill as Superman.
Fuck, I love Batman vs Superman. I'm a Batman vs Superman
did I.
apologist. I really
Yeah.
love that movie. The people don't know
And-
yet. I love that movie
And
more than
that'll be next on our
I know.
DCEULOgy.
now that I'm thinking about it, especially the extended cut, the director's
Yeah.
cut.
We're gonna watch the Ultimate Edition.
Fuck yeah, we are. This is tough. I'm gonna have recency bias. We're gonna finish every movie in the DCEU, and I'll be like, "This is my favorite DCEU movie."
Yeah. This gave me a lot of optimism about the DCEU. I loved it then. I still love it now. You know, I find more flaws with it as time goes on, but I'll always leave it on.
My closing thoughts on this is a lot of people are like, Snyderverse versus Gunverse, what's gonna... This actually got me very excited for what James Gunn is about to bring to us and move forward. I won't lie, it got me excited for the Flash movie. Seeing Michael Shannon come back and just the whatever's gonna happen, Michael Keaton's in it, like it got me excited for it. I'm not gonna lie.
You know who else is excited for the Flash movie?
Yes,
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Just to fill in everyone, there was a tweet where Tom Cruise asked David Zaslav, "Hey, can I watch The Flash?" He said, "Yeah." And Tom Cruise responded saying, "These are the type of movies we need to be making right now." And we all know Tom Cruise famously saved cinema, so it's got his seal of approval.
Yeah. Why was he in? I feel like someone set him up.
I don't understand.
I feel like there.
What level of actor do you think you need to be like, hey, can I watch this unreleased movie? That's a foreign concept to me. I'm starting a conspiracy that Tom's trying to convert Ezra to Scientology. This is the first seeds here. Okay, so yeah. Overall, though, yeah, I'm gonna stick with my in the 80s. Like, I'll give it an 82. If Rotten Tomatoes, I think 82 feels right to me. I'm shocked to hear it's in the 50s.
Okay. Yeah, I would say this is 75%.
I could accept that. I don't like it, but I'll accept it.
Is there any other DCU news?
No.
Okay.
James Gunn's directing the new Superman movie.
That has been announced. I'm excited for it. And
I trust him. I do. I trust him. I think he's proven himself. I just think that's the biggest thing is, like, he's proven himself at this point. Like, just trust that he knows what he's doing.
He'll be a good steward of these properties.
I saw a tweet that was like, it's weird this man's hair was totally brown 2 years ago. I was like, what? And I looked it up, and it was.
Just stressing about how the DCEU was falling apart, and he's like, David Zaslav, I've got to do this.
He's getting nightmares of Zack Snyder.
He replaced our timeline, James Gunn, with nightmare sequence James Gunn.
James Gunn can't stop writing that Bruce Wayne knocks up Lois Lane. He's like, no, it doesn't make sense. I can't. Why does it keep coming back to this?
Yeah, for all of our mourning of the Snyderverse, I'm glad that didn't pan out. That shit was absolutely batshit crazy.
That would have lost me. Like, you know, if you're talking about moments that lose people, there's the head snap, there's the Batman killing people, there's Martha. For me, it literally would have been like, nope. Bruce Wayne and Lois Lane, no.
Yeah, if you don't keep up with the news, this was a while ago, but Zack Snyder had posted pictures of these whiteboards where he had written out what would have been Justice League parts 2 and 3. Was it a 3?
Yeah, so it was supposed to be like...
Jesus fuck.
Yeah, it's going to be Justice League 1, 2, and 3. And we saw Justice League 1, essentially.
And they would have, like, fleshed out the nightmare sequence more.
Well, I think that's where it was leading, was that 3 would end up being the nightmare sequence. And it got there because Bruce Wayne knocked up Lois Lane and pissed off Superman. Which I don't understand, because he's alive again. Like, if Bruce was... Or, like, if it would make a little sense if it happened while while Clark was dead. But he's back. He's alive. Like, what's going on there?
I don't know. Everything happens for a reason. Maybe it's all for the best.
Someone ran back in time after seeing it in theaters and was like, we're not letting this happen.
James Gunn. He's from the future.
That's why he loves the Flash movies so much. He's like, oh, this is literally what happened. There's like 2 people who understand what we're laughing about right now. Thank you guys for joining us on our fucking special episode. We're going to do more of these randomly. Sign us off, Evan, please. I don't even know.
Yeah. Next up would be Batman vs. Superman. We're going to watch the Ultimate Edition. Yeah. It's probably an extra 30 minutes, but it's a crucial 30 minutes. It's a crucial 30 minutes. Framing the rest
it's not a 30-minute
story.
Scene. It's several 1 to 2 minute things that make a lot more sense.
But that will do it for this episode of DCEULOGY. We will catch you next time.
Bye.
Don't do as much cartoon.